are back again for another news update for Freestyle Motocross. I'm Steve Sommerfeld, the host of the Riders Lounge podcast, and it's great to have you back. I was hoping to have the interview with one of the X Games Real Moto riders for you today, but we had to reschedule for later this week, so you'll have to check back for the next episode. I won't let the cat out of the bag on who it is. You'll just have to wait and see, but you've got a 1 in 6 chance of working out who it is, or a 16.67% chance for those of you who are playing percentages at home. Before I get too much into the mathematics for today, I want to thank the good people from Rothaus in the Black Forest region of Germany for continuing to brew the best damn alcohol-free beers I've ever tasted. With the European summer coming to an end, it was actually pretty damn awesome to look back on those warm days when I'd have a Rothaus Tannenzapfler alcohol-free beer while I was riding my mountain bike in the hills around here in Bavaria. Well, it's not so much a mountain bike, it's actually a really crappy bike I bought in Berlin, which is completely flat if you've ever been there. So it's not exactly the best bike for the hills, but I'd rather have an alcohol-free beer during those rides than looking for anything else. And it tastes bloody good, so thanks to Rothaus for continuing their support of the Riders Lounge podcast during these times, which has seen me spend a bit more time outside than the last few years at least. Speaking of Real Moto, we have some results of this year's series, and as Nostradamus, I didn't see 2020 turning into a huge pile of crap like it has, but I was fairly accurate on the results of the Real Moto competition. So, without further ado, it was Colby Raha taking out the judges' pick, with Josh Hill in second place and Jacko Strong in third. But for the People's Champ Award, it was 29.46 of the vote going to Jacko Strong, who narrowly took the win over Colby Raha with 27.98%. Oh man, my brain hurts with all this math so far today. I can see why I pulled out of that first science degree at university. With maths being one of the first subjects. I only stood the gravity part, I think it was, in the physics department, which kind of makes sense in freestyle. But to be honest, I pretty much picked the top 3, but in the wrong order. I wasn't sitting there with some fancy calculations like the judges like Mike Mason, Twitch, and Jimmy Hill had. I was just going by gut feel and kind of guessing what the judges would think. I had Jacko in first, Colby second, Josh Hill, and picked in that order. At least I got the People's Champ category right. Not sure what that was paying out with the bookies though. Nah, I can't even fake to know anything about betting. I'm the world's biggest tight ass, so I only played the pokies once in Vegas when I was there, and only because I realized you get free drinks if you do. But before that, I didn't even know you had to tip in America, so actually there was some pretty upset waitresses as well. If you haven't already, check out the full 45-minute video on YouTube. You get to see all the behind-the-scenes footage of Colby Raha, Jacko Strong, Corey Creed, Josh Hill, Vicky Golden, and Cody Webb, and their video team, and what it took for each of them to get their clip done. I would probably vote the 45-minute video as the winner, actually. I was pretty pumped on that. It was actually, for me, way better just to see everything and how they got these videos done. If you didn't know what I was talking about with my guesses, after this news report, go back and listen to the review of each clip by the riders and make sure you check out that 45-minute clip on YouTube. It's been a pretty crazy couple of months since the last news wrap-up. I went to Prague. We filmed and live-streamed the Pilnikovo event with Peter Pilat. So thanks very much, Peter, for having Rach and I come back. And we streamed it all for the Night of the Jumps channel at the time. And actually it was the first time I've been there not to ride, only to film. The riding was awesome again. I picked up a few interviews with the Italians who were there, and they're all online now as well on the Riders Lounge podcast. So if you haven't heard them yet, check it out with Massimo Bianconcini, the Italian stallion, who's definitely one of the old guys in FMX, but still going hard. Davide Rossi is one of the young guns who's hell-bent on learning new tricks and stepping up his level of FMX, and at the same time still being one of the nicest dudes in freestyle. And then there was the interview with James Trincucci talking about how he went from Italian's trial champion to riding Erzberg after buying his first enduro bike and just missing out on qualifying by 1 place. But also talking about the new movie he's got called Back to the Roots, which should be coming out right about now, actually. So check out James Trincucci's Instagram. I'm sure he's going to have some news very, very soon on that release. We did some interviews, one after the other, after a leisurely breakfast at the Loretta Golf Club. And I love that place. I've been there before, but unfortunately we ran out of time because I wanted to get an interview with Leo Feeney, but we had to pack up and get to the show. Leo is one of the most focused guys I've seen in freestyle in a long, long time. And I've spent quite a bit of time riding with him in the last few years in shows in Spain and down there in Italy and wherever the else we've ridden. So I'll grab an interview next time with him. We probably just need, oh, far out. Isn't that good? We need James Trincucci as a translator. He'll probably have to translate for both of us if my English is that bad as well. I also want to take a moment to remember a young rider from the Czech Republic, Thomas Brat, who unfortunately passed away just before Peter Pilart's jam. He was an accomplished motocross racer who had just started getting into freestyle motocross and was loving it. And actually, since I started this podcast, he was one of the very first people to message me after I began this new series. And what was even nicer was that he sent some photos when we first met, when I rode at Pilart's Jam in 2017. And you know, now in 2020, we were talking about his new compound he was building, getting the machines to build the down ramp, getting all the ramps set up. So he was really getting into freestyle. He was riding at Pilart's Coaching Academy, obviously getting tips from the best with the pod moles as well. And I still can't believe that he's gone. And my thoughts are to his family and friends in the Czech Republic. And it's just incredibly sad to see that. But what was really nice to see was all the young guys who were part of Pilart's Academy who rode at that jam, showed up, they rode well and they rode safe. And that would have been so damn hard for those young guys to do. It would have been so raw for them. And of course, paying their own tribute to Thomas at the same time. So yeah, that was definitely a tough one. And again, my thoughts with his family and friends. All right, so moving on to more freestyle motocross news. And I was going to release this actually a little while ago, but then kind of got stuck doing a couple other things. And I thought I'd wait for a bit more news. But it was the Fight Club that Jared McNeil was hosting at his house. I don't know if it was Jared's idea to have Fight TV there, but the event was held at his house, which he promoted the hell out of, and it went down last month, and it looked absolutely awesome. There was plenty of gnarliness to come out of it, but actually it was Tyler Berriman who took the win, and this is huge. He won at Jared McNeil's house. That's pretty crazy. Jared has spent countless hours in his cat machines to build one of the best looking setups for someone's home compound. And I spend more time actually on watching his Instagram stories of just him pushing dirt around. And actually just on that, check out his new video he just released this week that he did with Caterpillar and building a full-on course with all the different types of cat equipment. It was sweet. And if they condensed that down into 1 minute 30, he probably could have also been a contender for Real Moto as well. But anyway, the Fight Club was a really cool concept with the quarter pipe, best whip, and step up, and doing it all from a backyard. Obviously, there needs to be a hell of a production around that to run this fully from somebody's backyard. So check out fight.tv, and you can still watch the replay now. But with names like Jared McNeil, Colby Raha, Cole Seeley, Tom Parsons, and Derek Beckering, it was no easy feat for Tyler Berriman to take the win there. Some crazy news. Danny Torres, one of the biggest legends in freestyle motocross, has undergone knee replacement surgery. After 3 years of operations, he's finally had to make the huge decision to put in the metal work. Danny has competed in more than any other Red Bull X Fighters events than anybody else with 48 starts. He's been in the most head-to-head matchups with Ronnie Mac's favourite number of 69 matchups. He's had the most head-to-head wins of 41, the most quarter-final and the most semi-final appearances, and he's had the most top 3 appearances at 20 events of Red Bull X Fighters. He's also had the most World Tour top 3 appearances of 7 and earned the most points in the entire series of 2,340 points, and was, of course, the World Tour champion in 2011. So this is a huge decision for Danny, as this is the decision I'm kind of grappling with similarly for my hip to get the replacement as well. Do you continue dealing with shit, or do you just go and get the operation done and hopefully just feel better? And it appears after 3 years of Danny trying to deal with his knee problems and having so many operations and getting back on the bike and then another operation, they've had to go with no other choice than to chop out the old knee joint and replace it with some steel. I don't know if the end credits are playing on his illustrious career just yet, because I was told with my hip, once I go the full replacement, having any type of crash with that kind of metalwork in there could completely destroy the bit of bone that's holding in the prosthetic. And once that's damaged, there's an even bigger problem. But hey, we didn't get into freestyle because we thought of medical problems that could arise. We'll do it because we love riding freestyle. So head on over to Danny's page, wish him all the best, and hopefully we'll see him back in action in some capacity very soon. So I've got some more news coming back to Jacko Strong, and he's got more double flips on a brand new ramp. I mean, we started this whole thing with X Games Real Moto where Jacko did the double backflip off of a dirt jump, but just like Jacko, he's always in the shed coming up with something else, and he's designed a brand new super kicker which seems to get the job done just right. And he also blurted out the dimensions. So it's 3 meters high, 5 meters long, with a 5 meter radius. Sounds pretty simple. I remember when Freeride MX published the first ever 9 meter radius ramp dimensions, which were used for 75 feet or 23 meters, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I think it was in about 2001 or 2. And I went straight to the shed with the magazine sitting on the welder. It was just permanently opened on that two-page spread about the ramp. And I pulled down as much of Dad's 40x40 RHS steel, and I just started welding up the frame. I didn't have a rolling machine, so I remember actually putting a peg in the ground with a 9 meter piece of rope, and I just scratched into the dirt a 9 meter radius. I went and got my 8 meter long piece of RHS, and I started bending it around anything we had around the house and around the shed. I bent it around fence posts, I broke a couple, and anything else that was just laying there. But funnily enough, after I'd finally welded the radius, the length, and the height together, my old man came into the shed, and he realized, and I guess we both did at the same time, how big a steel ramp actually was going to be. I'd never jumped a ramp. I'd never seen a ramp in real life up until that point in time. I didn't even know how fast to jump it even once I'd set it up, or what the hell the bike was even going to do. But at that point, when I just had 3 pieces of steel tack welded together, my dad decided it was way too steep and I was just going to jump to the moon. He said, well, since it's your first one, boy, maybe mellow out the belly so you don't go too high, which completely defeated the purpose in building the ramp for its function, I guess. But I did it, and it gave me a massive kick in the ass. Like, imagine coming onto the ramp with a curve at the bottom, then in the middle it was kind of flat, and then a curve at the top where you take off. So I used to get kicked in the ass heaps, like from the back wheel and the suspension just loading up all wrong. If I knew now what I did back then, I should have just stuck with that Freerider magazine and dealt with going to the moon and the impact of coming back down from orbit, or at least what we thought was orbit back then. So I'm not saying to go do that. I recommend calling your local steel shop, as almost all of them these days have a roller and they can do it exactly to the specifications. I'll see if Jacko has any plans that he can share around, because I know some people really just love reading plans and knowing exactly where to put in the supports and whatever, but I mean, it's fairly easy. From whatever Jacko said was 3 meters high, 5 meters long, 5 meter radius. That's all I know. If you want to give it a shot, well, it's trial and error. Go for it. Night of the Jumps. Coming back to the World Championships. Yep, you've probably read the news by now, but if you haven't, all of the events that were on sale so far in 2020 have been postponed. So for all the Euro guys, unfortunately, you'll have to wait until next year. Munich will now be the first event, probably the first event, with the World Championship starting on March 13th inside the Olympia Halle in Munich. For Basel in Switzerland, it'll now be pushed back to September 25th, 2021 inside the St. Jakobs Halle. So it's about a 1 year pushback from the Swiss. And the Cologne event, which is always part of the Intermot Motorcycle Expo, they've changed dates to 2021, and we're just waiting to hear exactly when that will be. So tune back in for those dates. Night of the Jumps are still working on new events for 2021 in many of the nations they've visited in previous years, and it's looking pretty good. There's also some new events on the cards, and I can't wait to see the new Freeride MX World Tour kicking off as well. I've also seen that Nitro Circus World Games have announced their next event will be in Brisbane, Australia next year in October. I'm not sure if that means if Wales is completely called off. I know they've cancelled it and they're giving back refunds. Or will they be going back there again one day in the future? Hopefully they do. But it will be interesting to see this set up inside the Suncorp Stadium. And I can only hope that Australia's really tough COVID-19 restrictions have eased by then, which are definitely much more stringent than where I am here in Germany, for example. If I wanted to go home right now, it's damn near impossible with only a few flights back per week. And reading reports that most people have to pay through their noses for a business ticket if they want to get one of the rare seats. So that, plus coughing up for the thousands in paying for hotel quarantine, yeah, I really hope the Australian way of dealing with the coronavirus is hopefully relaxed a little bit more by then. Hopefully everything's relaxed. And hopefully the disease is eradicated. That would be fantastic. While that hasn't happened, we've still got news on the all-new TIMX. This is Motocross game, which has come out all guns blazing. And if you remember from the last news podcast, I was talking about launching the first ever esports series. Actually, it's technically virtual sport because the riders will be at home recording their runs first and then sending it in. So that's virtual FMX. Esport will be the next step when we're playing properly, live in action, and that is absolutely the next way to go for us. Unfortunately, since the first announcement, Aussie Adrenaline, who had the game already cruising along with heaps of new players joining up, came across some problems that even the big name mobile game developers found, and that's Apple and Google being giant pains in the ass. With more and more hoops to jump through to appease our mobile phone overlords, Ash and his team have done an awesome job on the brand new game being released in the middle of a pandemic and dealing with the delays coming from Apple and Google. On a side note, it's not just TIMX. Do you remember seeing Fortnite? They actually got kicked from Apple altogether. There seems to be a big war going on there, and I'm really glad I'm not a developer. It must be such a headache. But for me right now, I'm just getting my home studio set up right now, and we're recording the first week of competition, which will feature Sheeny and J.O. Archer, Jose Morales up against Massimo Bianconchini, Fred Carrillos, Nick Gavankov, Pat Bowden, Eric Ruiz, Dallin Goldman, Edgar Torrenteras, Michael Malero, and even more. So check that out on the Night of the Jumps Facebook page, where you, the listeners and viewers in that case, will be voting for your favorite rider in this new FMX World Championship. I went full circle and I decided to actually have a separate prize for a judged favorite, kind of like the Real Moto thing where they had the fan favorite, which is what we all really wanted to see. But then there's also the judges' vote. So I'll also be judging every single run throughout the full 5 weeks, and we'll have another winner, another judged winner. But basically, with my own little bit of news here, I broke into the top 100 in the game. It took some work. I had to kick a lot of asses, and I had to take a lot of trophies, but I'm finally well on my way to finally getting paid to play video games. I've only been working on that since I was about 7 years old with my Super Nintendo playing Street Fighter 2, but actually I remember back when I was about 14 with a good friend of mine, Lachlan Ingalls, we were playing Nintendo 64 on GoldenEye, and we used to actually create like guides on how to get through GoldenEye levels using screenshots, using our 33.6 kilobyte per second dial-up connection on the hardest modes. Man, life was easier back then. But anyway, if you were watching the live streams that I was doing on TIMX on the Night of the Jumps channel, I was pretty busy with them, and actually it was a hell of a lot of fun. There's a fair bit of carry-on going on those live streams as well, but then I was a little bit crook for a couple of weeks, and then we had the Erkner Triathlon, and we were running one of the first sporting events in Germany with Marco Manti and the company that runs Night of the Jumps. They actually ran the event really well, and I can only hope that it shows how good our production team is doing everything the right way for socially distancing 1,400 athletes and running a full event over a weekend and proving really to the German governments and to the world, which has closed down all of these events, that we could actually get it done, and we did it safely, and hopefully we can all get back to work in a safe way very, very soon. But yeah, with the live streams where I'm just playing and working my way through the game, that'll be back. I'm coming back this week, so check out the Night of the Jumps Facebook page and the Riders Lounge Facebook page. I'll jump on both of them and stream from there. And also, Tia from Night of the Jumps has almost finished making the trophy for this new EFMX World Championship Series, and as soon as it gets delivered here, I'll put some photos up, because what I saw in his development, it looks freaking awesome. I'm sure that's plenty of news for now. You've probably had enough of listening to me jibber jabber on today so far. I guess one other thing I wanted to point out was the red KTM has just been released, but I can't believe that Gas has brought out a 125 two-stroke and not a 250cc two-stroke. I'm spewing. We could have seen so many KTM or Husky two-stroke riders switching colours yet again and having more options in freestyle motocross, but it's not to be. I want to say a huge thanks again to the huge brewery of Rothaus for searching the globe high and low and actually finding a machine which removes the alcohol from beer to create their alcohol-free beers in such a sensitive manner that you can't even tell the difference when you're having a nice cold beer at the end of the day or at the end of a podcast, which technically for me is the end of my day. Funnily enough, the machine comes from Australia, so I can't help but see some awesome similarities in their fine beer and me being from Australia and living in Germany and taste testing their whole range. Thank you again for tuning in, and make sure you head on over to the Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube pages of Riders Lounge Podcast for more information, images, videos, and whatever. Insta, of course, is my go-to, so I'll see you there. And if you think your friends would be stoked to tune in to some of the podcasts, don't be scared to share it away to everyone. It'll be a huge help to get the word out there and keep this thing, whatever it is, growing more and more. I just can't wait to get back to the real events and interviewing everyone in person with a Tannenzäpfler beer in hand, which, of course, was the main goal for starting all of this in the first place. So, Prost!